Welcome to the Create What You Speak podcast. Join me as we have a real-life discussion on how to change your life by changing your thoughts. Remember, question everything, trust yourself, and find your truth. Welcome to the Create What You Speak podcast. My name is Sloan Fremont, and I'm your host. On this week's show, we're going to be talking about adjust accordingly. Adjust accordingly. I like those words. Just saying them brings almost an instant relief to me because it reminds me that I don't have to continue whatever I'm doing with a rigid perspective or a rigid way of being, way of doing. It gives me the permission to change my mind, right? I can change my plans. I can change whatever the hell I want to change because this is my life and I'm in control of it. I create my own reality. Too often I found myself forgetting that I can adjust accordingly. And it's not until I'm at my breaking point that I give myself the permission to do so. I had some realizations about that this week, so I want to get into that, and I have some examples to share with you from my own life that I think might help you as well. But the reason I really wanted to talk about this week is because living in this rigid, this closed-in box, it's not a way to live, right? It's not a way to be. And I think because of just what the last year has brought us, a lot of these things have come to my own attention. And so I've been able to make progress where I didn't think I had actually made progress. And I'm wondering after I talk about this if you'll feel the same. So we're going to get into that this week. And really, the reminder is to give yourself permission to adjust accordingly. And remember to do that as often as you need to. Before we get into the show, I just want to remind you of a couple things. If you're new to the show, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. If you've been listening for a while, thank you for coming back. A new episode of the Create What You Speak podcast goes live on Web Talk Radio and all your favorite podcast players every Monday. If you would like to support the show, one way to do that is through my course, 33 Days of Magic. And what this is a 33-day practice where I take the principles that I talk about in this show. I give you quick and easy actionable steps you can do in your own life to move yourself in the direction that you want to go. If you'd like more information, please visit 33daysofmagic.com. Okay, so let's get into this show this week about adjust accordingly. I was thinking about the other day just how much 2020 and even into 2021 has changed me. It's changed things. It's changed everyone, right? And really my outlook and how I think about things or look at things that I used to have I would say such a rigid belief in. Something came up that I don't even know what it was, about law of attraction. And it reminded me of some of the dysfunctional parts of law of attraction for me. Now, I still believe in the law of attraction. I still believe in that we create our own reality. Those core principles have not changed for me. But I do think over the years, the way some things are taught, the way that I internalize things, the way I heard things, right? I'm not putting this all on the teachers. I think some of it was the way I took it at the time. I think there were things I know there were things that didn't fit for me. They didn't ever make sense for me. It just didn't add up. There were pieces that felt disjointed of the whole thing, of the way it was presented for the most part. And I've come to realize some holes in my former beliefs that I want to share with you this week, some different examples. So one of the first things that sticks out to me when I think about how I used to look at or believe or interpret the law of attraction was about not wanting to feel negative emotions. That was something for me where I would run as fast as I could from negative emotions. I didn't want to feel negative emotions because I felt like if I did that, I would get more of whatever the negative emotion was that was causing me to feel negative in the first place. So I did everything I could to avoid these feelings, not think about them, pretend they weren't there, put on the happy face, right? And not let those negative things that needed to process. I was a master at running from those and escaping that. And over time, that caught up with me. It's not a way to live. We are humans with a range of emotions, and we're meant to feel that range of emotions. We're not meant to just only stay in one, section of emotions that are those high vibing, feeling good emotions, right? The negative emotions have purpose too. They're there to tell us something. They're not meant to be ignored. And I had this, it was 2 weekends ago now. I was having a really bad day. I was just having a bad day. And up until that day, I think I had been putting a Band-Aid on it. I'd been pretending like I had been over the years that everything was fine when it wasn't. And I was so sick of doing that. I was so fucking fed up with it that it was a Sunday. And I remember I just let myself feel the mad, the sad, all the feelings that I wanted to run from before. I was actually supposed to go meet friends for lunch that day, and I canceled because I was in such a bad mood, bad state. I was just in a bad spot, and I needed to feel that. I needed to sit there and feel that. And that's what I did the whole day. I let myself be mad. I let myself feel whatever came up. And the phrase I kept telling myself during all of that, because it's foreign to feel those feelings so intensely in that way if you haven't done it for a long time, right? If you've pretended that everything's been okay and you've been avoiding, feelings of rage or sadness or anger or revenge or insecurity or feeling guilty or fear or, whatever, if you've been shoving those feelings down, to actually let them go and just let them be, let them run free and allow that, there was almost like so much power in that. Like there was a lot of relief in that too, but also as this was happening and these range of emotions were coming up and it was new to feel it like that intensely, what I kept encouraging myself to do was to be friends with those emotions. Be friends with those emotions and be okay with sitting with them. Like be okay with experiencing this, where in the past you might have been doing everything you could not to feel these things because of all the other reasons why, but let's just sit with this and see how it feels. And feeling all of those feelings and making friends with those feelings, what I found by the end of that day is I felt a million times better. I felt better than I had felt in such a long time. And I actually think being willing to do that, to adjust accordingly and do something I wouldn't normally do, actually released so much, like a dam, right? It just let go of all this stuff that has been continuing to release. And I feel like almost every day I'm feeling better than I did the day before. Like there was a lot of power in that for me to be able to do that has had far more positive benefits than I would have ever thought, but also more than just what I experienced that day. It's been ongoing. And the benefit of that, the benefit in doing that is I felt better faster. Like I felt better instead of trying to fight those, all the emotion and the energy that it takes to fight all those feelings, like just letting them flow and letting them run. I felt so much better after that. And like I said, has continued to felt because I just let it flow instead of trying to fight it. And there was so much power in that for me that I think I was really shocked at that it turned out that way, because I think sometimes when we worry about feeling those feelings, we think we're going to get stuck in them, but that wasn't the case for me. And it almost had like a natural progression, I guess is how I would describe it. I felt through the feelings, and then the feelings ran their course and they weren't there to feel anymore. And once that happened, then I felt better and it was done. It was over, right? It wasn't anything like I had been trying to fight off. So that was a very eye-opening experience that day, to be able to do that and let that carry forward and all of the range of emotions I felt. And then at the end to have it kind of clear itself out, and how much better I felt after that. And thinking back to my interpretation and the way some people portray the law of attraction. I'm like, wow, just think if everybody let those feelings just feel. Like if you just sat in the feelings and let them feel, there's just, I would think collectively there was a lot to release. So after that, I was thinking about other ways where things that just didn't line up for me with the law of attraction, and how looking at them differently has changed things for me. So another one was how I used to blame myself for these bad feelings I was having and thinking that I did something wrong. So those negative emotions that I was talking about that I felt that whole day on Sunday, like in the past, my interpretation of the law of attraction was that if I felt those bad feelings, that I did something wrong. Like in the whole new age thing, right? How people try to portray that they're just on this even plane where they never, always in such a high vibing place or always feeling good, right? And that's just not realistic. As I said earlier, we are meant to feel a range of emotions. And one way that I interpreted this was that if I felt bad, it was my fault. And so I would blame myself. So on top of trying to suppress those emotions, right, I would blame myself for feeling the emotions and just keep piling on that inner punisher, right, that just keep punishing myself and making myself feel like shit for it. And that is not also the way to be, right? That's not at all the way I want to live. It's another level of exhaustion when we pile our own, self-inflicted, rage against ourselves about things. Like we keep beating ourselves up over it. And blaming myself for having these bad feelings was I look at it now also, and I feel sad that I used to do this to myself, because this is not how we're meant to live, right? Feeling bad emotions is just part of being human. You didn't do anything wrong. Like I didn't do anything wrong that I should make myself feel bad for feeling bad. And I really struggled with that for a long time. But then it was like I got to this evolution of the process, right? After I started to realize, wait a minute, that's not actually right. Like I shouldn't, this isn't normal. This isn't good. I don't want to live like this. I don't want to be this way, right? I create my own reality, and this is not the reality that I want to create. I don't want to create a constant war with myself when I have a feeling or an emotion that I don't think is correct, and placing all this blame on myself and judging myself and assigning all this meaning to it. So that was another thing that never really added up for me. But in this instance, on this Sunday, when I let myself feel the emotions, there was no blame about it. I was actually friends with those emotions. Like I said, I befriended those negative emotions, and I talked to those emotions. All right, like what's really the deal here? Like what's going on? Okay, I'm with you. Like this, I'm mad about this too. Or this person was a jackass for sure. There is no reason they should have acted that way. Or, whatever it was, instead of trying to fight myself on it, I was on my own side about it. And let me tell you, that made such a difference in my interpretation, in the way I experienced that day, and just allow myself to flow through those emotions and stop feeling like shit, right? Like that helped me to stop feeling like shit, because I was on my own side instead of fighting myself. Another thing I used to do as a result of my interpretation of some of the law of attraction teachings were ignoring what I didn't like and looking away from it, right? Because it kind of goes back to that not wanting to feel the negative emotions and feeling like if I did something wrong, so it was my fault. And so it's the same with like seeing something bad, like ignoring it because either I didn't like it or I didn't want to get more of it. That was always my fear, that if I looked at it and I read about it or heard about it or whatever, I would get more of that. And this is just another way to suppress negative emotions, right? It's another way to place blame on myself and make myself feel like I did something wrong because I was seeing it. And that's another really a lie that we tell ourselves. It's that inner punisher. It's that wanting to make ourselves suffer. We have this, I know I do at least, have this, this like desire to make myself suffer. And all of these ways that I'm talking about today were ways that I would do that. These are ways that I would make myself suffer at my own peril, right? I would do it. I was self-inflicted. I was doing it to myself. And in this ignoring things because I didn't like it and looking away. I mean, that's another way to suppress emotions. It's another way to not feel it all, try to cut out a chunk of something that, you don't want to acknowledge. And that is not healthy. It's not healthy. Sometimes it's not even possible in some situations. But being able to open myself up to those things and not make myself feel bad or guilty about it, and just seeing it all, even if it was the things I didn't want to see, and reminding myself I'm not meant to solve everyone's problems. Like, that's something that's so easy to take on, like seeing all these things that we don't agree with and wanting to help people or make things better or fix things. We're not meant to take on everyone's problems or solve everyone's problems. And seeing these kinds of things that we don't want to see, we can remind ourselves that it doesn't have to be this way, but we can decide we can decide the things that are within our span of control if we want to try to do something about them. And because we can't do every single thing for every single person and every single situation, right? And so ignoring it and looking away was not helpful for me. It was another form of suppression. But once I allowed myself to open it up, whatever it was, right? Whatever it was that I didn't want to see. That day I was feeling all those negative emotions. I invited in things that I was pretending weren't there or that I didn't want to see. And through that whole time, as I was making friends with my emotions and I was letting that process evolve, I'm reminding myself I'm not meant to solve everyone's problems, but I can talk this out with myself, right? I can allow myself to have this conversation, and I don't have to pretend it's not there, because pretending it's not there wasn't doing it for me either. It wasn't helping things either. And I think one of the last things that really stood out to me as I was looking back at this, my interpretation of the law of attraction and how much it's changed over the past year and how I've really been able to adjust accordingly, was thinking about how a lot of times it can keep you in action. Sometimes we can put everything on everybody else and wait for someone else, wait for, quote, the universe or someone else to deliver for us, or that outside savior kind of complex, right? Where we're looking for someone else to save us. And I don't think I was looking for someone else to save me. Or, in fact, I know I wasn't, but I was more, sometimes I felt like I was keeping myself not taking action on things because I was waiting for the right moment, or I was waiting for the perfect scenario to line up, or I was, it was trying to make it too perfect. And instead of that, what I've been able to remind myself and do is, remind myself that I have what I need within. I have the answers. I have it. It's in me. I don't need to go outside somebody else to get the answers. I did a show a while back called The Era of the Guru is Over, where I talked about this extensively about, I think we're pretty much all done with looking outside of ourselves for answers. It's not for some celebrity to tell us how to live our lives, or some advertisement, or some, whatever it is, reality TV show. It's not up to anybody else to tell us how to live our lives. It's up to us. And we have what we need within. We don't need that outside savior to come in and try to save us. And reminding myself of that has been, it continues to, I think, build up confidence, build up our own inner confidence when we remind ourselves that we have what we need. We have it inside of us. And being able to do that, to adjust accordingly when you feel yourself getting stuck in one of those places of inaction because you feel like you're waiting for something to happen. I feel like waiting has been a theme for a lot of us over the past year or two, with just how everything has been. And so I think it's a good reminder to tell ourselves that we have what we need within, and we have the answers. We don't need somebody outside of us to tell us what's right for us or how to live our lives. So looking back at the past year and looking at these different scenarios, these different trigger points, I guess I would say, for myself. It's been a really good way to, in a year that felt like no progress, to remind myself that I did make progress. I was able to adjust accordingly. I was able to move out of somewhat rigid beliefs and change my perception, change my approach, change sometimes even who I was, how I even act. And I feel like the benefit of all of these were for the better. They helped me doing this, being able to adjust accordingly, helped me to stop feeling like shit, like all the time, right? Because these things that we do to ourselves, they just tend to pile on. Like, if you do one of them individually, okay, maybe it's not so bad. But if you're not wanting to feel your negative emotions, and then you're blaming yourself when you do feel the negative emotions, and then when you're ignoring things because you don't like the way they look, and then you're stuck in this place where you don't want to act, all of those things compounding together really make for a shitty life. And I know because I've lived it. So being able to adjust accordingly is, I think it's critical. It's critical, especially right now. And this is going to look different for everybody. These were just my examples as I looked back over the last year. So I think it's a good exercise to look at your own life over the past year. See how far you've come. See where you've been able to adjust accordingly when the situation called for it in order to make things better for yourself. And maybe there's still some areas that you can work on. Maybe I think there are still some for me. I need to think about this a little more, but I do think there are. So maybe there's ways you can continue to adjust accordingly to continue to have things improve. So that's what I want to leave you this week, is to think about that, how you can adjust accordingly in your own life. All right, so that's it this week for the topic of adjust accordingly. I would love to know your thoughts on the show. If you have any questions, please email me, sloanfremont@pm.me. My website is sloanfremont.com. I will also list all of my social media in the show notes below. Thanks for listening this week, and until next week, remember, question everything, trust yourself, find your truth.